something my guest today said that stopped me cold. You have 3 to 5 seconds to grab the attention of the person who's actually going to hire you. 3 to 5 seconds. And in those seconds, most of us, especially those of us with depth, expertise, and decades of experience, are doing exactly the wrong thing. We're writing LinkedIn profiles that read like a CV. We're trying to convince strangers they have a problem. We're marketing to anyone who might possibly need us someday. And then we wonder why the pipeline is empty. My guest, Sue Begent, has a different idea. She calls it the diamond buyer, the 15 to 20% of your ideal client who isn't just aware of their problem, but is actively looking to invest in a solution right now. Their first question isn't, how much does it cost? Their first question is, will this work for me? And if you're a self-employed consultant who is good at what you do, but the income isn't showing it, you're going to want to hear what Sue has to say. Because the truth is, you don't need to work harder. You need to write to fewer people with just the right message. My name is AJ Riedel. This is Thriving Through, the podcast where each week I have real conversations with self-employed consultants about what it really takes to build a profitable consulting six-figure business. Let's get into it. Welcome to this week's episode of the Thriving Through podcast. Today, my guest is Sue Begent. Sue, I am so delighted to have you on the podcast. I met Sue on a Society of Professional Consultants workshop that she hosted a couple of weeks ago, and I loved what she talked about and thought it would be so valuable for podcast listeners. So, Sue, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. And thanks for inviting me to speak today.
So, Sue will be talking about the diamond buyer concept. But before we get into the diamond buyer framework itself, take me back. What was the moment or the client situation that made you realize that most consultants are chasing the wrong buyers? Sort of the origin story of the diamond buyer concept.
Yes, and that's a great question. So perhaps I should first explain what a diamond buyer is so
Yeah,
that, um,
true.
and so I suppose the best thing to do is to go back to the beginning of my own journey as a solopreneur. I work with solopreneurs, and so like everybody, I left my corporate career, my sales and marketing career, and I started my own business and quickly realized that there was an enormous amount that I didn't know. And so I went and I invested in help. I got, in fact, multiple people over several years, I should say. I've been doing this for 10 years. And so back then, translating, I had come from a pretty sophisticated marketing background. I'd been in pharma marketing for, well, 25. I've been in pharma marketing actually best part of 20 years. I was in sales before that. And I had also worked at the global launch level. So we'd done, positioning and messaging at a pretty sophisticated level. But I quickly realized that we didn't quite need that level. This wasn't like we weren't going into crowded marketplaces where everybody was like trying to find their spot. So back then, it was actually enough to dial in onto an ideal client. And I think anybody who's had any type of business training is like, yeah, oh, ideal client, not again. you know? And I used to feel the same way. It's like, really? You're going to make me do this again? But of course, the reason why every business coach is saying, narrow in on an ideal client is because if your message is really going to land with somebody, it has to resonate with them. So if you are staying at a high level because you need to be general, because you're trying to reach an expanded group, you can't get that real specificity that you need to connect, particularly if you're going to connect online through the screen, and which is definitely the most challenging way to actually connect with a potential client. So I went along like everybody did. Um, narrowing in. But back then, women solo entrepreneurs. Well, women solo entrepreneurs is like a huge group.
Yeah,
So,
that's not
and
particularly narrow.
so, but like everybody, the market has changed. And I mean, anybody that's been in business any period of time, we change, we grow, we learn things. That evolves who our ideal client is, and the market changes. And I think the last, I would say, 18 months in particular, have most solo entrepreneurs who are trying to get clients online are noticing, wow, there's been a huge change. And really, multiple things drive that, have been driving it. I think one of the things is this is really sort of agnostic to the type of business you're in. Everybody is being marketed to so much online. And any screen that you look at, whether you're watching TV, whether you're on any type of social platform, it doesn't matter. I read the other day that, our grandparents would make like a handful of decisions a week. Like they went to the store, they put toilet paper, they put toothpaste, but there were like two brands. It really wasn't a decision. Today, every micro thing we do um, involves decisions. We have to choose. And we have decision fatigue, all of us, I think. And so that bombardment is just a reality. It's we open our email, people are selling, people are wanting things from us wherever we are online, and we're all online. So there's that. AI, of course, has amplified all of this because AI has allowed people who haven't quite, they may be excellent at what they do, but they may not have mastered their marketing skills yet. Well, now everybody sounds the same. And most people are still at sort of level one of using AI, if you like, where the prompts that they're putting in aren't very sophisticated, they aren't very targeted, and so everybody's sounding similar. And we're all asking ourselves the same question, which is, was that written by AI? That sounds like AI. If I see another M dash, I'm gonna and and a lot of us are very fed up with that because it makes us wonder, well, what's behind that? Because is it somebody real? Is it somebody with depth? Is it somebody with experience? Or is it somebody that's, been doing this 5 minutes? And it feels like, you know, we default to thinking either they're better than they are or they're not because we think AI wrote it. So this shift in the marketplace has meant that average messaging has that time is over. And so as that started to impact me, and then I'm listening to colleagues, people that I've, been working with for ages, it's impacting everybody. I'm like, okay, I need to go back to my roots and really think about what did we do? Because we were launching big, what are now million and billion dollar drugs, quite frankly. We were launching them. We were doing a lot of messaging into crowded marketplaces. We had to think about a lot of the dynamics that are going on today for solo entrepreneurs back then. And that made me really sit back and think, what does this look like for a solo entrepreneur? And the truth of the matter, I think, is that whereas okay messaging would actually bring in clients even a year ago, um, today it doesn't.
Mhm.
So we got to be a lot more sophisticated about this. Positioning, the way we position ourselves has become absolutely pivotal. And, I know that you want to dive into, the client piece of this, which is the foundation stone, quite frankly. If you don't get that piece right, everything else rests on it. But positioning is about for the right client, Who do I offer a differential benefit that I can talk about that will resonate with them? So positioning is so important. Then
And
clarity about,
be,
yeah,
before
go
we
ahead.
go on, define positioning.
So
What do you mean by
positioning is
positioning?
about how, technically it's like what's the space you want to occupy in your, prospect's mind. Um, but in practice, just to be basic, it's really what I just said. It's like for your ideal client, we're going to come back to that obviously. There's a choice that they would make, and they've got a problem. They're ready to make a decision. They look around. So, for instance, I'm going to use, one of the examples that I talk about quite a bit. I just think it's just a great example. But somebody came to me. She was an ADHD coach. She highly qualified. She actually at one point said to me, "I'm thinking of doing a PhD." She already had a master's degree, and I'm like, "Whoa, stop! You're well qualified." But she was marketing to people with ADHD. And so she was basically saying, if you've got a problem because of your ADHD, I can help you with that. And if you sort of read through all of her about page, her LinkedIn profile, that's what it said. But it wasn't speaking differentially. It wasn't positioned for anybody in particular. So here's what happened. In her profile, one line at the bottom, it said, I am thinking of launching coaching for couples where one person has ADHD and one does not. And as soon as I saw that, I went, oh my goodness, that's it. So that's a position. Can you see that she went from being a general ADHD coach, I can help you if you're having challenges because of ADHD, and to a very specific, if you're a couple where one of you has ADHD and one of you doesn't, I'm for you. Now, here's where the positioning comes in. It's about contrast. There's a little more to it, but essentially, the contrast is if you're a couple where one of you is not neurodivergent, you're probably going to go to relationship counseling. And you may have already done that and come unstuck because the person who has ADHD, their behavior is misattributed, if you like, because it's actually due to their neurodivergence. So when she positions herself, she talks about, a really logical choice is for you to choose to go to relationship counseling. But here's why I am a better choice for you. And
Mm.
then she talks about the fact that she had a 15-year relationship with somebody who was not neurodivergent. She is. She talks about all of the ways that that can lead to a misappropriation of the behavior of the person with ADHD. And also, then she's able to talk about the risks of not addressing this and and so on and so forth. But she's positioning herself as differentially better for those people by creating contrast from the choice that they would make. So that's about positioning yourself. And it's a really good example of she was always amazing. She was a very experienced coach. She had many hundreds of hours of coaching experience. She was perfectly placed to help people with ADHD, but positioning herself with that contrast so clearly made it very easy for the right clients to go, oh my goodness, that's us. She's talking to us.
And what it also came out of her own experience and how many
Mm.
ADHD coaches were in a relationship or a marriage where there was one neurodivergent and one
Yes.
none. So that was also, that makes her more credible because she's been there, done that, and she can relate to them on
Yeah,
a personal level as well.
absolutely. One of the things that people, particularly, I will say, as ladies, but not it's not confined to us, but we tend to think there's nothing unique about me. I don't, I don't know that I have anything particularly, outstanding to say, and so we don't think about the fact that if we think about our life experience, our professional experience, the wisdom that has been part of what we've gained through everything that we've done, the trainings we've had, when you start to put it all together with talents, aptitudes, all of a sudden it starts to make sense. And we realize actually for the right client, for me, for you, I do have something actually important to say. And we tend to not see how incredibly powerful it is for those right people because often we think, well, doesn't everybody know this? But of course they don't. They don't. For the right
And
client,
they
they absolutely don't.
don't. And there's also for me, I was a self-employed consultant for 35 years, and now I work with self-employed consultants. But I always considered when I closed my business, I thought of myself as a failed businesswoman. So when I talked about when I went into coaching and I talked about in my about me section, I would not talk about those 35 years. And I also wouldn't talk about my X number of years in corporate marketing before that. I would just talk about coaching, and I didn't have a whole lot of credibility in coaching yet. And my husband kept saying, you got to talk about, the
Yeah.
previous stuff. And I finally realized the people that I want to work with are the people that can't break through what I call the 100K glass ceiling. And there are the majority of self-employed consultants are below the 100K and they're
Right.
struggling. They've hit that ceiling. What better credentials do I have than the fact that I was a reasonably successful consultant for 35 years, rarely cracked the 100K and never consistently year over year. So
Right.
that gives me some built in credibility that I originally would have hidden inside, being very ashamed because I wasn't one of those people that could say, I built a multi-million-dollar business and now I can teach you how to do it. I couldn't say that. Um, so my strength was the fact that I can really relate because I was there.
Yes, 100%. I often find when I'm working with people that quite frankly, in some fashion, we are, if we're really dialed into the right client, we are reaching back to somebody who is in a place that we used to be in,
We
and we learned so much, and now we have so much to offer them. And I think that,
absolutely,
and usually I find that it's that really inspires people. Like, even if it didn't feel like ultimately it wasn't like, oh, I became, I was earning $1 million every year. I still now this makes real sense of all of that experience. And it absolutely 100% needs to be part of that. It's golly gosh. Yes. You
when
know
you're
every
working
step of your client's journey.
when you're working with clients, do you find that they hesitate to what to work with who they were before? I mean, is there some resistance to saying that? I mean, there certainly was with me.
It depends. It depends from person to person. Some people I mean, I have a client right now. She's like, absolutely, I had all of this experience and I've got so much to offer and I can't wait to get out there. And then other people, for instance, I had a client who her daughter had ADHD and no, she was diagnosed with autism age 16. And working with her, there were multiple places that she could go. She had her coaching qualification. Now she needed to really narrow in on who was she really going to focus on. And in the end, she had multiple options. And she came back and she said, I want to help parents of new where their kid is newly diagnosed. She said, because when I look back, that nearly floored me. And for a year, I flailed around, no idea what help there was available, no idea what resources we could actually tap into, and didn't feel as though there was anybody around me. I almost felt like, first of all, I wanted to protect my daughter, and I also, there was like, it seems ridiculous now, but she said there was just shame. She said shame that I hadn't understood that this was going on before. So lots of things can come together. But of course, once it's claimed, it becomes hugely, hugely powerful. And I want to sort of go back now to where you started because you said I mean, I have a diamond system. and it starts with a diamond buyer. So what's the difference between a diamond buyer and a buyer, an ideal client?
Mhm.
Um, and I think this is something that's become very, very important as a foundation of marketing today to get your
Yes,
message right.
I absolutely agree. When you gave the workshop, it's like, yes, yes,
Yeah,
that's who we have
because
to go to.
what I talk about is the 15 to 20% subgroup of your ideal client. Ideal client remains a very important concept, but some of those clients are ready to buy now. And they have a very different psychology in that they are just by nature decision makers. Some of us are and some of us are not, and some of us get there. But if we're going to be successful, we need to be focusing on the people who are ready now. They are already ready for a solution. And there's a difference between being aware I have a problem and being ready for a solution. And it's marketing to those already ready for a solution, which makes all the difference. And it's the, as you know, I know you and I agree on this, and we already talked about it today. That's the foundation of everything because the perspective that informs is this different is who is it different for? Because we go back to the ADHD coach, she was not different for everybody with ADHD, but she claimed the differentiator for couples where one did and one did not have. So it's like, who do I have that standout differentiator for? And what was great about choosing those clients is that they were already aware they had a challenge, they were already seeking a solution, already ready to invest. Their first question wasn't how much does it cost? Their first question was, will this work for me? And do I feel seen? And do I connect with that? Because the key to connecting with a buyer like that is not what I see most. I see this all the time, is I see amazing people, consultants and coaches and solo business owners. What they put out online looks more like what they put out during their corporate career because that's what they know. It looks a little bit like a CV. It says I have 30 years of experience. It might tell a little bit about their personal journey. It says I have skills in a list of areas, I have depth. And they think because they know the depth that they bring to the table. And they think that if I say all of those things, the person whose, screen this is coming by is going to make the assumption that I have depth because I sat in that chair and did it all for 30 years. How could I not have depth? But the truth is, they have 3 to 5 seconds to get the attention of their ready to buy person. And the way they're going to get that is by having a headline and the first few lines that reflect the exact internal, in-depth experience of that ideal client. So, um, for instance, currently working with somebody who's in the building industry. Her ideal clients are um, business owners of, they're building, say, 30 to 50 homes a year, who know that their system is breaking down somewhere, but they're not quite sure where. But they know that profits are down. They know that their staff is not that happy, and the clients are, they might start out really happy when they sign up, but at some point they become unhappy. And so they either are coming into it, I need to fix this problem, or they're stuffing the problem down because they can't see exactly where it is and they don't have a solution for it. So because of that, they just plow on, but everything's
Right.
landing on their plate. And so what gets their attention is, there's something wrong, but you don't know what to do about it. And then details about what that means, all of the things I just talked about, so that they go within 3 sentences, they go, that's me. That's enough to make them continue reading, and then the job of your copy, which is what I specialize in terms of how do you translate your messaging and positioning, it's in the copy that you write. You take them on a journey that has steps that take them up. It's all about them. It starts with where they are and it walks them through a solution, and so that reaching out to make contact, to have a conversation, is the next logical step. And that's what I see missing most of the time. And I recently have changed my approach actually, because in this world of AI, I think this has brought some additional opportunities. And so when I'm working with somebody, speed is of the essence. Usually they come to me, they don't want to wait weeks or months for for a result. And so I work with them on their messaging so they understand the principles behind what they're doing. And then often I will do, I will either write copy for, say, 2 or 3 pages of their website, or I will write their LinkedIn profile for them. But what that does is instead of them going backwards and forwards trying to learn how to do this and put into practice what I've taught them, the principles, much of what I've talked about today, I show them what it means in their voice, in their business, for their ideal client. And I find that that brings a huge, oh, that's what it means. Now they have a really solid foundation and platform to like all the principles. That's what it looks like for me. It is my voice. It's completely different from, any of the other clients that, for instance, I work with. And now I support them to write the posts, to write the emails, to create compelling, you know, podcasts or whatever they're doing, so that it's now they're pulling that single-minded message and positioning has to be consistent right the way through. It now all makes sense and it flows from that foundation. And if they feel uncertain, they have that foundation to go back to. So,
I love that approach because learning the framework theoretically, intellectually, it makes sense. But then when you roll up your sleeves and you start to try to apply the framework, that's when the back and forth, the am I doing this right? Am I saying this right?
yes,
Why isn't it, and the self-doubt and the I don't know what I'm doing, all of those kinds of things start to come in. So you give them the basis of the framework and then you say, this is what the framework looks like for you. Now let's go and put it into action. I think
yeah.
that's a brilliant pivot on your part.
It's an opportunity that is brought about by the technology that is, it's created the challenge, but it also creates opportunities used the right way. And that's really the
Because
key. Yeah.
because then you can also use the copy you wrote for them, and especially if they use Claude, create skills or about me files that incorporate
Yeah.
those that languaging. So when Claude writes something for them, it is also in their voice. And
Yes,
it's, then
absolutely.
they're not getting the standard AI garbage because, if
Yes,
AI doesn't know who you are and what your voice is, of course it's not going to sound like you.
that's right. That's exactly right. And so it's all about how and getting there quickly as well.
Yes, I love
Because
that because
there are so many
yeah,
other things to learn, right? So,
yes, and it can be,
but this
and
is
it
foundational. This is like the front door, isn't it?
absolutely.
And get the path from the road, which is like the internet, up your pathway and up the steps to your front door, through your front door. Now you can actually do what you set this business up to do in the first place, and that's the exciting bit. You get to
Right.
serve them, and once that works, it's so exciting, and it feels really good. It's like, oh, cracked you're like you cracked the real puzzle. And I often say, I think messaging and positioning, ideal client messaging, positioning, differentiation, all of this, is a no shame zone. It's really tough to do it from inside of your own self. I have had plenty of help from more experienced people along my own journey because you can be staring at it. It's so hard to see your own. And it's not because the concepts are necessarily that difficult. It's because we are human beings and our physiology is, is protecting us from making some of these leaps. But once we do, it's like, oh, yes, of course. And yeah.
And it's also the validation. I recently changed my headline on LinkedIn and I was really uncomfortable with it, but I decided to go with it. And when you and I connected after the workshop, you said something about great headline. And it's like, oh, the sigh of relief. I'll keep it because it was a very vulnerable head position, but it really is what sets me apart. But we
I
can't.
remember the headline actually. I don't know if you want to say it because I do think it's brilliant. Um, because I've never read another headline like it. And yet, so do you want to share it?
Yes, yes. Of course, I don't have it memorized, but I can go in quickly and pull it up. It's I help self-employed consultants break through to six figures, 35 years in the trenches, never hit six figures. Then I built a system, revenue and marketing coach for consultants.
Yeah, yeah. As soon as I saw that, I thought that's brilliant. It's brilliant because it it creates that resonance with because there are so many really smart coaches, consultants, and solo entrepreneurs who are I am a really smart person. I'm really, really good at what I do. I have depth and experience. Why can't I figure this out? And so I think that is really, really, I loved it. I saw,
Oh,
yeah, and because it also has that that vulnerability, which if you're going to come and be vulnerable about the fact that this is not going this hasn't gone as nearly as well as I'd hoped. I am struggling. I am working, way too many hours. And don't seem to be getting traction. To have that sort of makes it safe. This is a safe place, and you are a safe place for me to come and have that conversation. So, yeah, I was like, yeah, love it.
no, thank you. You made my day when you did that.
Oh,
I
good.
want to go back to something that you said in the webinar, and you hinted about it, but you said that the diamond buyer is someone who has a problem, recognizes that they have the problem, and they are actively looking to invest to solve the problem. And
Correct.
that really was like for me, because how many of us we know what their problem is. And
Yes.
so, in our LinkedIn posts, we're busy trying to educate them on the fact that they have a problem.
Yes.
How are you going to open their minds and make them realize they have a problem? No, I
That's
mean that's a really long uphill battle.
It's a very
So,
long uphill battle, and it's not something you can't make somebody ready. I mean, we know that from actually every aspect of our lives. It's true. We can't make somebody ready. And we have to speak to somebody who's already ready. They're like, that's not the question. The question is, I'm finding a solution here. I just need the right person who can get me to the result that I'm looking for. So when what we put out really resonates with them in that moment, with the solution that we are looking for, and there are various ways to communicate that are powerful, that's when we get and those people come in. It makes an enormous difference because you're not then getting into a sales conversation where it's an hour and you're trying to, and you're going through the sales process and you're walking them through and you're helping them be aware of their problem. No, once if they read that right messaging, they come in already pretty sure that this is going to be a go. They're already made they're well on the way to being sold. They want to make sure that, it just all adds up in real life. Is the chemistry there? Do I really feel like you're the person that I'm, who's behind what I read? You are. Where do I sign? It really makes an enormous difference. And I think for most of us, that's what we want. We don't want to spend an hour and then find out, well, I need to think about it. And I
Yeah.
think we all of us had that experience multiple times usually, and I certainly certainly did earlier in my career. But this is the power of messaging and positioning, and it's really a way, if you're somebody listening to this and you are like, I'm very good at what I do. My clients, when they work with me, they get great results. I have depth, experience, I have all of these things. Once you fix your messaging and your positioning, you are light years ahead of most people in your category. And if somebody is a decision maker and they, for instance, they go to LinkedIn and they just put in, the headline of what they think they're looking for, and they get 15 profiles, like 14 of them are going to be read like the CV. I've this many
Hmm.
years of experience, a whole list of things, and and here's my personal story, but I'm not interested in your personal story until you grab me. So that's what is needed in today's world. And that's,
Absolutely.
and it's interesting, I started out by doing a lot more with clients, and I still do. Once, we start working together, I can do, I help them put their work into a system and a program, and how to write the copy for that. But if once you get your messaging right, everything else becomes possible. And until you do, it's like, what? It can be almost like this invisible block that's like,
Absolutely.
why is this not working? And it's why I actually really love this. I've always had a passion for words, I guess, but my corporate career and my career as a coach has taught me how to use that differentially in today's marketplace. There's one other thing that we haven't talked about, which I think is a big challenge for solo entrepreneurs and consultants. And it's like, okay, great, I've got my core message now, and I feel like really strong in that. But what do I write each week? If maybe I'm going to write a newsletter. Well, okay, but what am I going to talk about? And that's a really legitimate question. And the answer is, my answer is, there are certain beliefs that somebody is going to embrace if they're the right client for you. For instance, talking about, well, what's the root of the problem? I talk about messaging, positioning as the root of the problem. But if you are somebody who's like, you're such in a different place, like messaging positioning might be your core problem, but that's not the way you're seeing it. So the very first belief you have to come to is like, you know what? I've tried everything else. I've tried clarifying my message. I've tried posting in more places. I've tried to get on every platform under the sun. I've tried ads. I've tried all of these things, and I'm still not getting traction. That person comes to that conclusion, I think it's got to be the message. It's because I'm putting the message everywhere, so it's clearly the message. So my buyer has to, first of all, go, that's what. And so that's one of the things I talk about. Then there are a series of other beliefs. They have to believe that, they have to come to the conclusion that, well, first of all, it's not about posting more. Then they have to decide that messaging actually is the challenge. And then, all of the things that we've talked about. It gives knowing your ideal buyers, your diamond buyers, 5 beliefs that lead to the yes, give you a framework for everything that you talked about, so that there is purpose. You are helping somebody move through, oh, yes, okay, it is positioning. You're helping somebody move through. So then, so through a series of logical beliefs that mean that you become the obvious solution. And so once you have the eyes of the right people, they self-select out if they don't believe what you're putting out there. But you select in and create really committed people for those who are like, absolutely, I've tried everything else. Everything you're saying makes complete sense. I want to have a conversation with you. And and that's why they come in already pretty much sold because they've already worked through all of those things. And the what you are putting out helps them figure that through in their head or go, you know what, I knew that, but I've never heard it said that way. And now you said it, I totally get it.
Right. Light
That
bulb.
gives structure to all of the material, all of the communication that you're putting out there. And it stops the whole, Monday morning looking at the blinking cursor on the on the document going, oh, what am I going to write about this week?
I have to do a newsletter because I committed to it. What am I going to write? So let me ask you a
Yes.
question. Is it those beliefs that you talk about? I mean, do you is part of the content that you create to help them to kind of almost bust the opposite belief so that they can get to that belief?
Well, for instance, I've we have covered, what I talk about, in this interview. I talk about everything land it starts with your ideal client, but a diamond buyer is somebody very different. If somebody doesn't think that that's true, now, if as I talk about that, they may go, you know what, that really resonates with me and that makes sense. Okay, great. You know,
Got it. So
positioning creates contrast.
you don't try to change their belief. You communicate in a
No.
way that gets them to say, yes, I believe that.
If
Therefore,
they're going to look at it and go, that makes sense.
sense. I
We
love
can
it.
never, I think we can never, and I would, it's just not, I don't think you or I operate this way. We're not here to try and manipulate anybody. That is like
Absolutely.
instantly,
Yuck.
it's like, yes,
That's
somebody's
like
gonna
yuck.
like, yeah, I don't want to read that. Oh no, and that's it, they're gone. But if what we're putting out is quality and it helps them like with a different lens on a challenge that they're already ready to solve, there's like, that's the point at which they go, I think this person knows what they're talking about. That really makes sense to me. And then,
Yes.
as you're talking, and then you're talking about, you're thinking differentiation is I've got to have this thing, or I have to be making $1 million so that I can talk about that, otherwise I'm not going to be differentiated. Actually, let's talk very differently about what differentiation looks like. And when it's for the right person, it's going to make sense of your experience and it's going to connect with theirs. So
Yes.
all of these things can take somebody who's like feeling like, I just don't know, feel like I'm different, but how am I going to tackle that? And then you would write something about that. Yeah, I frequently do write things about this. And that helps bring it into focus. And so as I talk about each of these, it helps like, oh yes, oh yes. It's that internal, this makes sense. And as I talk about client stories, clients going through that journey, pivot points where they got these insights, and then here's what changed. That fills in the other piece, which is very important. It's like, is this going to get me where I want to go? Well,
Mhm.
yes, let's talk about that. And
I want
so,
to talk more about beliefs because you wrote a LinkedIn article about beliefs that really, it was a fairly recent one that talked about the core beliefs your ideal clients need to hold before they'll work with you. And I went through and I did mine. Did my five non-negotiable beliefs that I'm capable, I just don't have a system. Random acts of marketing will never get me to six figures, no matter how hard I work at them. Foundation comes before tactics, always.
yes,
Uh, Investing in expert guidance is faster and cheaper than another year of trial and error. And I want to own my system, not rent it. In other words, I want to do it and I want to create my system and then I can maybe outsource it, but I don't want someone else to create it for me.
yes,
So
yes, yes,
you've had a fundamental impact on, it's like it really got me to thinking. It's like, yeah, what does somebody have to believe? Because I teach a system and it's a 9-month program. That's a big investment of
yes.
time and money. What do they have to believe to be interested in investing 9 months in a program?
And what's so powerful now is that gives focus to all of your posting, all of your speaking, all of your, when you're putting together a talk, you want to hit each one of those points. And when you're talking, like when you're in a podcast interview, I mean, you just wonderfully, articulated those. But it allows those to really be focus, a focus, so that exactly. And I mean, and thank you so much for saying that. I do put out a weekly, LinkedIn newsletter, and I do and you know, and this is something else. It's like your client isn't somebody who can already do this for themselves. If they can read an article and do it for themselves, and they're not a client, they don't need, help. But if it helps that right person go, wow, that was a really important insight, and I need more. Absolutely.
which is
Yeah, that's the
absolutely what
power
it
of the
did.
right message.
And it's absolutely what it did for me was it's like, okay, I could figure out these beliefs, but how do I integrate that into message, into my LinkedIn or into a webinar or into a newsletter? I don't know what to do with these now. So it
Right.
makes me say, I need to work with Sue
That's
because
that's
I,
that's
I need
exactly
to
right.
know
How do
how
I
to
turn that
translate.
into something that's really compelling? And in that 3 to 5 seconds, it's going to make that connect through the screen. That's the key. That is absolutely the key. Yeah.
Yes. And we are, I don't like the podcast to go more than 45 minutes, so we're kind of at the end, but I want to talk about really how you can help people. I want to talk about two things because, and I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to very soon. It was the offer that you have for like $297. Tell us about that offer and then tell us how we can work with you, how who you're looking to work with and how we can work with you.
Sure. So, the offer that you're talking about is the diamond diagnostic. And this is often a great place for somebody who's experienced to just dip your toe in the water. Because what I'll do is you send me a link for it can be part of your website, it can be your LinkedIn profile, it can be maybe some recent writing that you've done, and I will do a diagnostic on it. And the lens that I use is exactly what we've been talking about. Is this really honing in and speaking differentially to a diamond buyer? Is it really then claiming that so that you are really standing out for this person? And are you positioning yourself powerfully? And then, and so I look at those three things. And that's usually very illuminating for somebody because often, there'll be things that there are always things that there are really powerful. And I will see those. I'm like, wow, that's really a strength and it's being overlooked right now. That should really come out. But it helps bring a lens so that's like, oh, okay, translating these principles, this is the beginning of what it would look like to translate this in my own work and make what I'm doing stronger or even give me some new opportunities to pursue. So that is a great way to actually start that conversation. And from there, somebody can go, I'd like to take this forward myself. I already feel pretty confident about messaging. Absolutely. Beautiful. I love it. Um, if from there, then they say, okay, I really want to actually take this to the next step, then there's a couple of ways we can go. What I like to do with people is, and it's interesting because, as I mentioned earlier, I've just started doing this whole, if you would like me to therefore redo some of the messaging that you have shown me, then I would be really happy to do that. And what I do is I then interview somebody for it, about an hour. And I provide those questions ahead of time so they know exactly they can prepare. But then I say, throw them away. You can send them to me, but then throw them away because then I want you to talk to me in your voice, the way you say it, and tell me some stories, tell me some client stories, and out of that, I am able to really capture your voice and find that what you're really looking for, which is how do I engage my ideal client out of the gate? And that's what we do. And then from there, work through then an outreach plan, and then how to have all of the communication that you're putting out there be equally as powerful as the piece of work that we've just worked on together. So from there, at the moment, I'm making it pretty tailored actually, which I'm having fun with, and I'm really loving. And honestly, I have my ideal clients, frankly, my diamond buyers are often ex-corporate or they are ex-professional, if you like. They had a professional career. Now they've either decided to consult with their expertise or they've decided to become some sort of a coach, and they really want to be able to reach those clients and quickly. Because the beautiful thing about the done for you approach, or bringing that into the business mentoring, is it really speeds up your ability to have that footprint immediately and give you a foundation that you can then anchor in. And then as we work together, you really start to get this. And now you can write your own stuff and really feel confident about, yay, oh, look, people are starting to come in. And that's really exciting. So,
Love it. So as we start to close, is there anything else about your concepts or the diamond buyer that we haven't talked about that our listeners need to know?
I mean, I have a whole diamond system, but it's the diamond system is essentially has four pillars, and that's what we've talked about today. The diamond buyer, your unique ground, which is your differentiation, your powerful position, which is how you create that contrast from the choice that your client would make, and then your buyer's beliefs, which gives you that solid foundation for everything that you're doing promotionally. So, and brings those clients in. So.
Wonderful. So the final and most important question, if someone wants to learn more about you and working with you, where do they go? Where can they
So
find
my
you?
website is suebegent.com, which is,
Okay.
and I'll just spell that, I guess, in case you're listening, but it's Sue, as in SUEBEGENT.com. Yeah,
Okay. Great. And by the way, listeners, that link will be in the show notes, as will Sue's LinkedIn URL. So you can go and check her
absolutely.
out
Yes, you can
on
definitely
LinkedIn as
reach me on
well.
LinkedIn. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And I know that I will be contacting you because I
Awesome.
definitely want to
AJ,
get some of
I'm
your
really
feedback.
excited. Fantastic. All
Yes.
right. I look
Yes.
forward to
So
it.
thank you so much for this fantastic podcast episode. And for those of you
Thank
listening
you.
or watching, until next time, keep thriving through.
Thank you, AJ.
That was Sue Begent, and I hope you got as much out of that as I did. If there's one thing I want you to walk away with, it's this: stop educating strangers and start writing to the small group of people who already know they have a problem and are looking for somebody like you to solve it. Sue calls them diamond buyers. I think she's right. Before I let you go, if you're doing solid work and your income doesn't show it, I want to offer you something. It's called a revenue diagnosis call. Before we meet, you'll take my free marketing consultant marketing scorecard, a 15-minute assessment that pinpoints exactly where your client attraction system is breaking down. Then on our 60-minute call, I'll tell you whether you have a lead generation problem, a nurturing problem, or a conversion problem, or maybe all three, and which one is costing you the most money right now. This isn't coaching, it's a diagnosis. If you're making less than $100,000 in annual revenue, and you know that you should be at 150,000 or more, this call is for you. And it's absolutely free, no strings attached. The link is in the show notes. Until next time, keep thriving through.